Hello and welcome to The Hash on CoinDesk TV and on the CoinDesk Podcast Network. I'm Jen Sanasi. We got Will Foxley and Anna Batakova on the show today, and it looks like we are celebrating Christmas in July. We're just all wearing green and red. I love a good.
Pink.
It's
this
pink?
is pink.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going colorblind or what.
I don't know. It just looks a little different on the camera.
Got Will Foxley in a salmon.
Almost
All
a
right.
salmon.
We don't only talk about outfits on this show. We bring you the top crypto news headlines, and SBF was in the headlines again this morning. Will, take it away.
We got two headlines with SBF, so stick with us. The first, the Department of Justice is looking to end SBF's time in his parents' basement and put him to jail. Why? Because he might be tampering with witnesses. That's according to allegations from the Department of Justice, which is seeking right now for SBF to be put in jail until his trial in October. The second headline we have for you is that FTX will not be, or Sam Bankman-Fried rather, will not be charged for campaign finance charges after the extradition from the Bahamas. If you remember, he was extradited from the Bahamas. And there was like 5 original counts. And then later, the Department of Justice brought up multiple others. But according to extradition treaties, can't do that. Can't just be slapping on more things you're going to charge someone with. And so they're going to have to pull those back after an agreement with the Bahamas. So 2 fresh SBF headlines this morning. The first one's pretty interesting. Tampering with witnesses. Some thoughts on that. He's had over 500 different calls with Michael Lewis, who's writing a book on him, and then 100 different calls with a New York Times reporter that actually released a story relating to his former girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, which is sort of revolving around this whole recent news with the Department of Justice. Can I throw this one back to you, Jen?
Yeah, former girlfriend and former CEO of Alameda Research, those diary entries leaked on the New York Times. She was saying, she didn't feel fit to be in the position that she was in. She also spoke about some of the inner drama that was going on between the two companies. One of my takeaways from this is don't write your innermost thoughts on a Google document. Very surprised to see tech-savvy people writing things like this on Google documents that can be accessible by many. But I think this is Sam Bankman-Fried, again, desperately trying to control the narrative. I must say allegedly, because his defense, I believe, is saying that he did not leak these diary entries to the New York Times. And I'm surprised that it's continuing on. Every time I talk about this story, I have to bring up that Sam Bankman-Fried is living with his parents, and both of his parents are lawyers. And we just see these very, very surprising actions come from him time and time again. He hasn't been jailed yet. So the timeline here is a quick one. I believe the DOJ has until Friday to make a formal written submission in this request to have him jailed until his trial. The defense can respond until Tuesday, and then by the end of next week, we'll have a final response. It would be an interesting turn of events to see him move from his parents' house to a prison until that October trial. Anna, what do you think?
Well, I was appalled by the story of the diary published, and regardless of who uses what for diaries, if the allegations of the DOJ that it was Sam Bankman-Fried who leaked Caroline Ellison's diary to the press, if that's true, I think it's absolutely damning. As a woman, I would want my ex-boyfriend jailed for that. But that's beyond the point here. So yeah, I guess it's just a continuation of this story of SBF being the main bad boy of crypto. And if he ends up in jail before the trial, that would be a significant development of that narrative.
Yeah, it would definitely be a new development. So just to fact check, Jen, he has been in jail once, right? In the Bahamas, he was
That's
first
true.
in jail, but he's not been in a U.S. prison, right?
No.
So you're correct. So they're awaiting news on that. The prosecutors and the judges have a few days to go through all this. The defendants are also looking at it. For right now, it looks like there is some sort of tape, for lack of a better word, over SBF's mouth. He's not able to speak to anyone in the meantime. They're looking at possibly extending that further by placing him in prison. He has his first set of going to court in October and then follow up in March as well on some different allegations. Some big news there. I want to go over to the extradition treaty. This is sort of an interesting thing, I think, in terms of crypto, the fact that we have borderless money, but that doesn't mean that the law is necessarily borderless. The U.S. was going after SBF for a lot of different things, right? From securities violations to wire transfer, and then even the things that they just dropped were dealing with campaign finance laws, right? Where SBF and a lot of his executives gave a ton of money to different politicians, and they broke campaign finance laws by not only using money that was essentially taken from customers, but also, I believe, by just like giving too much money to certain candidates. Those allegations are being dropped right now by the Department of Justice, and that's because of the extradition treaty. So back when he was first extradited to the United States, or extradited to the United States, he was only charged with about 5 different violations, including like wire fraud and securities fraud. And the other allegations and points were brought against him afterwards, after he's brought back to the United States. But because of this extradition treaty, they had to drop a bunch of these. I've already seen some people on Twitter talking about that, saying that like this isn't fair. He should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But I think it's just fair to point out like there's extradition treaties for a reason. These things exist, and no matter what, you have to abide by them. That's just how it works. So that is why those different points are being dropped. Jen?
Yeah, I think your point is fair there. The law exists for a reason, and they are operating within the law. That is not to say that there are not several very damning charges that Sam Bankman-Fried is still facing, and so this campaign finance charge is not the only one, right? So he's still facing many years behind bars if indicted. But let's move on. Let's talk about a bill that almost was another bump in the road, as House lawmakers have failed to reach a bipartisan deal on stablecoins legislation. Financial Services Committee Chair Patrick McHenry blames the White House, while the panel's top Democrat said it was McHenry himself who shut down talks. The news comes a day after 3 bills were advanced on crypto issues to a vote in the full House of Representatives. Let's take a listen to what McHenry had to say at the House Financial Services Committee today.
Unfortunately, there was a third party in this negotiations that did not share that same sense of urgency: the White House. A bipartisan deal was within reach. We were closer than we've ever been. A few small but nonetheless important provisions stood between us and a deal.
And I'm going to toss this one off to you. What do you make of these remarks? You know, we have McHenry saying the White House jumped in. If the Democrats saying it was actually McHenry. The fact of the matter is we still don't have any clear regulation in the U.S. when it comes to stable coins. What do you think of this stalemate?
Unfortunately, I don't have much insight on what happens in the couloirs of the Congress or White House. But from this piece we're talking about, it kind of, it seems to me there is no actual consensus between Democrats and Republicans on that bill. Given the critique by Maxine Waters for the bill, that it's given what she said, let me just find her quote. That the bill was deeply problematic and bad for America. Like, that doesn't sound for me that the consensus was that the deal was within reach when somebody doesn't like the bill so much. Maybe there is still a lot of ground to cover in Congress for Democrats and Republicans to agree what this future legislation should be like. And a lot of things to, a lot of problematic points for both sides to clear.
Yeah, I mean, this is like Fox News or CNN comes to crypto right now. We have a back and forth on Capitol Hill, and this is only going to be happening more and more in the near future. Why? Because stablecoins, Bitcoin, mining, all these things are becoming more and more important to the general populace. I mean, we had that poll from a few years ago showing about 17% of American citizens own Bitcoin, and then decent amount of people are also owning other assets besides Bitcoin, right, which have even further legal concerns around them. For instance, staking. Is staking a security or not? That's a hot topic. Stable coins as well are a hot topic. The reason being is, allows for permissionless transfer of money so easily across borders. And national governments are going to have an interest in that, especially the central banks around this. We talked last week about FedNow, essentially a means for banks to move money between each other very quickly through new infrastructure from the Federal Reserve. Stablecoins are competitor to that, and they're also outside of that system, right? And so we're going to see the Fed, the Congress, a lot of these administrative bodies become interested in talking about these subjects. It's not going to be dealt with in a day. This legislation was moved forward by McHenry only last week. It looks like it's a fresh push. I wouldn't expect this to move forward in any meaningful sense for quite a while, possibly even years, based on how a lot of things take a lot of time to move through Capitol Hill. There's going to be a lot of considerations about how do we redefine what it means to be a dollar in the wake of what tokenization has brought. Just the fact that you need all these licensing regimes within the United States, like every state, you have to go get some sort of money transmitter license, then you have to go on the federal level, then you have to go talk to all these banks. It's a pretty messy system, but that's from the traditional financial system where you probably only wanted to operate in one state if you're a bank, maybe a few, and so it was okay that way. But now tokenization, hey, I want to be able to operate every single bank, or I want to operate in every single state, and maybe even more than that, I want to operate in every single country. So this is going to take quite a while. I think we're just seeing the first shots. There's going to be back and forth for quite a while. It's not super surprising to me, Jen.
Yeah, there was response in the article to the comments that, Anna, you brought up from Maxine Waters. McHenry said, this will not be the case. It was the White House's unwillingness to compromise that has once again brought this negotiation to a halt. When I read this story, Will, I also thought about FedNow, solving a lot of the problems that stablecoins can solve when it comes to settling payments, especially payments across borders. I think it's interesting to see this debate happening and the level at which the debate is happening if we compare it to other jurisdictions. Of course, we have the MiCA regulation that's set to take place in the EU in 2024, and stablecoins kind of fall under that. We have countries in Asia that are looking at regulating stablecoins, and here it feels like we can't even get on the same page. I think this is just another note in the book that shows that the U.S. is behind other jurisdictions when it comes to regulating crypto, and we continue to become more and more behind. So hopefully we can get a few wins in the book, so we don't push companies to start looking at other areas to operate in. But let's leave it there. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we are going to continue the mining week discussions we've been having here on CoinDesk all week. We're going to take a look at some mining infrastructure and also talk about Will Foxley's at-home miner. So stick around. We're going to dive deep into mining right after this. Welcome back to The Hash on CoinDesk TV and the CoinDesk Podcast Network. It's mining week at CoinDesk, and that is presented by Foundry. Although the Bitcoin halving will reduce rewards for miners, the prospects for the industry remain pretty bright. CoinDesk and Foundry are both owned by DCG. Joining us on The Hash now to discuss is the CEO of web infrastructure solutions provider Auradine, Rajiv Kirmani. Welcome to the show, Rajiv.
Thank you, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So your company just launched a new line of U.S. crafted Bitcoin mining rigs. Tell us about the rigs. What's so special about them?
Yeah. Well, we just did this announcement this week. We are a young company based in Silicon Valley. And when we started this company, we wanted to focus on the future of the infrastructure, with Bitcoin being the leading blockchain in the world. We saw a few challenges that the mining industry was facing. One, as we all know, there's a debate on energy usage of Bitcoin. And secondarily, while about 35 to 40% of Bitcoin mining happens in the United States, almost all of the ASICs come from China. And as you know, that presents certain geopolitical supply chain risks and so forth. And so what we said is, let's build a product from the ground up. So we built an ASIC in 4-nanometer technology, which is the most advanced chip technology in the world today. And that was necessary to bring the energy consumption down. But what we also did is, in addition to this, we put together a system and software solutions and some really innovative technology that we call Energy Tune that allows for rapid demand response for the miners. And we unveiled these products and technologies with products made in the United States this week.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on the show. I'm curious to know a little bit more about how you see blockchain privacy and AI fitting into what you guys are currently doing, specifically as it relates to Marathon Digital. Are you guys have been working with Marathon Digital on some of these mining machines? I know Fred Thiel's the CEO of Marathon Digital, also on your guys' board. How do you guys see all these different parts working together?
Yes. So, well, first of all, we are working with Marathon. We are working with a variety of leading U.S. Mining providers. And we did actually work very closely with Marathon as well as with some of the other guys to put together a product that we felt would meet their needs. The product can operate in harsh environments, can operate close to natural gas flaring sites, can operate close to solar infrastructure, where there's maybe the temperatures are too hot. And so we wanted to make sure that we delivered a product that delivered much better uptime along with very rapid demand response. Now, in terms of your question about AI and privacy, we think these are linked. They are all future technologies that have tremendous infrastructure challenges. Cost, power is very important for all of these things. And what's happening is that Bitcoin mining data center operators also want to build AI data centers in terms of providing generative AI technologies at the edge. They have technologies like immersion cooling and so forth that are applicable to AI applications as well. And in terms of privacy, we are still early. We haven't announced a product yet, but we are working on some innovative zero-knowledge proof-based technologies that are very complementary to both of these things. And we'll announce all of these things as we get closer to market over the next few quarters.
And you mentioned this technology you use, Energy Tune, that allows the miners to respond to the demand response needs of the electrical grid. Can you talk a little bit in detail how that works?
Yes. So what we do is that these miners traditionally operate at a single hash rate and a single energy consumption point. But what happens is that when the electric supplier wants the miners to reduce the usage of energy, typically the miners have a challenge right now. So they can either turn it on or turn it off. But sometimes the energy provider says, bring down the energy by 20% or some arbitrary percentage that is needed by the consumer at that point in time. And so with Energy Tune, we provide the miners very fine granular ability to bring the energy up or down as is aligned by the energy provider's requirements. In addition, as we all know, Bitcoin had this spurt of transaction fees with the ordinals. And so sometimes you want to hash at higher data rates, at higher hashing rates, to capture those transaction fees. So with this energy tune capability, they can move it up and down. We also have an interesting capability called auto tune, where the miner can automatically tune or through API calls very rapidly go up and down, and do that while operating in harsh conditions. So the miner boots up at sub-zero temperatures and keeps operating at 50 degrees C ambient temperatures. As we see in certain parts of the world, there's very hot climate. So our goal is to make sure that we provide the best product to the miners for becoming responsible partners to the energy ecosystem.
Rajiv, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
That was CEO of Auradine, Rajiv K. Mani. All right, Anna, you got our last story, and it features Will Foxley. Take it away.
Yeah, and it's also about mining. It's about how you can mine Bitcoin at home, which might not even sound probable in the current environment. It's now all about big industrial miners, like huge venues with thousands of mining machines, because Bitcoin mining is so it's so energy hungry and requires the expensive machines. But some people, including our very own Will, still want to do it at home. And I talked to some people, some enthusiasts like him, about why are they doing this? How are they doing it? Is that profitable? Is that expensive to roll out something like Will showed us in this video? So maybe Will, just why don't you tell why are you excited about that? Despite all the odds, despite all the challenges of home mining, why you still want to do that?
Yeah, home mining is definitely a challenge, and we're enjoying my great film work here with my iPhone. So hope you're not getting nauseous from viewing it. Home mining is basically a way to get Bitcoin in a non-custodial, decentralized fashion, right? Typically, people go and buy Bitcoin. They buy on Cash App or Coinbase, or maybe they even go as far as ordering it on something like Bisq, which is more privacy-focused. But there's a way of getting Bitcoin nowadays still that is permissionless, and it's more privacy-focused. So I just plug in a computer into the Bitcoin network, and I start beaming Bitcoin myself just in exchange for energy. It's really what it is, energy for money in this instance. Now, like, home mining is not very profitable, and for most people, probably never would be profitable. But the idea is, like, maybe this Bitcoin is worth more in the future, so I do become profitable over like a 5 to 10 year span if I can hold that Bitcoin. And then secondarily, I think that I do want some Bitcoin that hasn't been touched by anybody else. It just goes directly from the Bitcoin network to my wallet, and no one's really aware of it. It's just sitting there by myself. And so that's part of the reason why I did it. The third reason is just kind of fun, right? There's not a lot of tangible stuff in Bitcoin. Like, yes, there's like NFTs on your phone, and maybe you can run like a validator on your computer at home. But besides that, like, most of Bitcoin is very intangible. And I think that's actually a key deterrent from a lot of people getting into Bitcoin. They want some like physical, like cash. I always hear that, like, well, can I hold a Bitcoin? It's like, no, you can't. But with mining, you can interact with it, right? You can go to a Bitcoin mining farm. You can feel the heat on your face from these fans. You can see like the machines themselves whirling around. Home mining, you have the opportunity to like really get into the weeds of Bitcoin and learn how it all works. So that's why I took it up for myself and lost a little bit of money along the way.
I wonder what you think, Jen.
I was just going to say, reading the article, it felt like, Will, you were a glutton for punishment. You weren't making any money. These machines are turning off on you. You had to like continuously maintain. It sounded like a lot of maintenance, but you make a good argument there. I wonder what advice you have, like, for people like me. Should I have an at-home miner, or is it just too much of a headache?
So there are like options for doing it. So if you take an older generation miner like an S9, you can probably plug it into most outlets. I'm not sure in Canada. pretty sure you'd be okay with this. But if you're in Europe or somewhere else, you might have a hard time getting like the correct plug. And those are just going to like a standard home wall outlet. Your energy bill is definitely going to go up. It's not a very efficient machine, but you'll get some Satoshis, and they'll be private and they'll be your own. No one else has touched them. They haven't been on an exchange. If you're going to go like a little bit more hardcore, like I did, you're going to be spending a weekend or two designing and building a box, making sure it's like watertight, it's quiet, it's private. I mean, it just kind of looks like a utility shed on the side of a house, right? And then to get like the electrical work and all that done for these next generation machines requires bringing out an electrician, because it can be a little bit dangerous, and then buying a machine. So it's a little bit of work, but I don't know. I enjoy Bitcoin. I want to be in part of it. I want to get my hands all dirty. So that's why I did this. Maybe you could too.
I just must say that I love stories like that about people persisting in their cypherpunk willingness to do it themselves, to do it with their own hands, to mine their own Bitcoin, and like not touch centralized entities, just do it by themselves. And like in the ideal future of crypto, of my fantasies, multiple people around the world are doing just exactly that. They're just mining Bitcoin small scale and like maybe connecting into pools, but like those little anonymous Satoshis are dominating the network, not big centralized players. Probably never going to happen, but thank you for keeping that hope alive.
All right, Will, I'm going to hit you up offline, get some instructions, and maybe I'll start mining my own Bitcoin. What a fun little takeaway from today's show. You can read Anna's full story on CoinDesk.com as part of Mining Week. Thanks for joining the Hash today. I'm Jen Sanasi. We had Will Foxley and Anna Badakova here. See you tomorrow.